Hi there, welcome to QA Box Let's Test, and this video we are going to work with some of these mouse events, and for some of these there is already a direct command available in Cypress. For others we have to use the trigger method. So click is one of the mouse event, and if we want to know what all events are available on a specific element, what we have to do is we have to open the developers toolbar, the element section, and in the second half you see this event listener, and then you want to select your item. And now when I select this item, you see this element has got two events, click and mouse down. Okay, so when I click on this, the code that I've written in the event listener is to raise an alert, and this alert will contain the name of the event that is being fired. So the first word signifies the name of the event. So when we do a single click, the event that is being raised is click, and hence you see in here click event is raised, and also in the event listener you see the click event is available. Now we select the double click element, and you see the name of the event that gets fired is dblclick, and when you do a double click you get this message. Then let's select the right click me, and the name of the event that is being fired is context menu. Okay, because usually when you do a right click you see a context menu. Okay, now there's one more thing. So if you do a right click in here, this is by default that you see. Okay, but when I right click on this element, you see I'm not going to get this, but I'm going to get my specific context menu like this. Okay, so in code what we have to do for something like this is we have to prevent the default behavior. Okay, the default behavior is that default right click menu option. Okay, then this is when I mouse over this you see a circle. When I mouse out you see the circle is gone. Now again let us do this, and I just click on this. So now you see mouse down, mouse out, and mouse over. So these are the different events that are available on this. Besides this website, we are also going to work on this spice chat, and in here what are we going to do is we are going to hover over. So my mouse is over this element, and when I do so a pop-up is available. Now when I hover over this spice club, and again a pop-up is available, and then I'm going to, let's say, click on sign up. Okay, in here this is another website, automation practice. So in here, when I hover over this woman, you see it takes some time to display that pop-up, right? And then I'm going to click on this tops. And also in case of Flipkart, you see you have the login, and then I'm going to click on, let's say, the reward, right? So we are going to work first on this sample page and then on the real world websites. Now for click, you already know we have this command click a DOM element, and these are the different versions that are available, right? So you can pass in the options, you can pass in the position. Okay, so by default Cypress clicks in the center of the element, but you can change the position where you want to click like this. Okay, and then we also have one very important thing which is force, and at times we use force equal to true. This is an option object. See, this forces the action, disables waiting for actionability, right? So we have to be very careful when we use this kind of behavior, and I'll show you one example which should not be used the way I'm going to use it. Okay, for double click, that's the next one, and I mean we have the command dbl click, and we have the same options as you could see. Okay, then we have this right click. This is the right click method. Okay, and here also you see the same arguments or options. Okay, now let's move on to the code part. We already know how to handle the alert, so I'm going to run my assertion on the text of the alert. Okay, and this is how we do the click. Now I'll show you one more way. So first let us run this, and you see the click event is being fired, right? So you could see the element is highlighted, and now you see the red dot in the center of that button, so which means that it is being clicked. Okay, so the other way you can do is, because we know with the help of trigger method we can execute the events. So let us try this, and it would also work. Okay, now you see this time we have used trigger. Okay, all right. So let's move on to the next one. So I'm going to change it to skip, and the other one is also pretty simple. So the command we already know, dblclick, and we can now also use trigger and dblclick. So let me run the trigger one first this time. Okay, so you see we have triggered this command, and we also see the session is being passed. So now what I can do is I can comment this out and uncomment this particular one. Okay, and if I run this now, I get the same result. Okay, all right, so this one is also working. Next one is my right click. So let me change this to only, and in here again we are pretty much doing the same thing. So we are first using the right click and then the trigger option. So let us run this as well. Okay, so the context menu event is being fired. Let us comment the first line and uncomment this and execute that. Okay, this one is also working. Alright, the next example is something that I've built using the Jquery Ui plugin. And in there, all we are going to do is we are going to check that two oranges is available and it should be visible. Okay, again, you can do the right click or you can use the trigger context. So I'm just using right click in this case. Let us run this test case. Mark this as skip. Okay, let us run this. Okay, and you see this case is being passed, and yes, I mean this is not position where it should be, but this is a sample page, so we are good. Our objective is to test these commands. Okay, next one, and let's understand this. I think there is something important in here. So again, we have this application where we just have to mouse over this, right? I see this element and I take my mouse out from this, the element is gone. That element has got the ID show. Okay, so what we can do is, of course, we do not have any direct command for mouse over and mouse out. And how can you figure out that what all events are available? Like I mentioned, just select your element, click on this event listener, and this will give you some idea. Okay, what all different type of events are being used for this element. Okay, and then with the help of trigger method you can move those. So we are just hovering over that and triggering mouse over, which will make this element visible, that circle, and when I take my mouse out, when I trigger that event, it would be not visible anymore. Okay, and I just execute this now. Let us see. Okay, so it was visible and then it was hidden. Okay, great. Now what happens is, rather than firing these events, people take a shortcut, or maybe they don't know, how to find out what all different events are being written. So in the last video I mentioned that in the source tab, you can apply some kind of breakpoints, and then you can, work on your application and then step into different functions to figure out, okay, which event is being fired or not. In this video I've also mentioned, okay, in here you would see that list of different events that are there, right? If you're not good at debugging, at least this will give you some kind of suggestion that, okay, try these events, different events, and some are quite self-explanatory. So you're pressing the mouse down, you are moving your mouse out, and you're moving your mouse over to that element. Okay, so rather than working with this element, what people do is, let me start with this. Since the element is already there in the DOM, it's just that it is not visible to you. Okay, so can I still click on that? So if I run this, right, Cypress has some kind of feature which says, okay, hey, no, your element is not visible, so you can't click on that. This, look at this problem, fix this problem or use this thing. Okay, so it is saying that pass this an option. Okay, so most of the people tend to do it like this. Okay, rather than following the steps that users will follow, they'll take their mouse over to that element, which means that that would trigger the mouse over event. That's the correct way, because you are doing the end-to-end testing, and the way you do your end-to-end testing should mimic how the actual users use your application. They are not going to click inside the DOM element. They are going to click on what they see on the user interface. Okay, that's very important. So if I follow this, right, see what is going to happen is, so it has already clicked, right? So the code that I've written is, the moment you can click on that circle, it is going to just raise an event saying that shows the ID. So it is going to read the ID of the element and then append the string is clicked. Okay. Now this is a problem, right? Because in the real application, I don't have the opportunity, because when I take my mouse over this, right, I see that element, but the moment I start moving towards this smaller circle to be able to click on that, it's disappear. I can't do that. But see, programmatically you can do that. So it's advised not to do it like this. And the other approach that people take is, okay, hey, this is currently hidden, I know it, so if I invoke the show method on it, right, it would be visible onto the screen and then I can click on it. Yes, it would work this way, but see, the real user can't use it like this. And in this particular case, just to prove my point, I have made an element something like with which user can never interact, but programmatically you can, right? So make sure that you don't deviate away from the user's behavior, all right? Just because you have got access to these methods, right? jQuery is really powerful, and the way, and that's the way reason Cypress has used this. But if you use it in the wrong way, I mean, it's of no use. All right, so let's move on to the next test case, which is Flipkart. uh, and it's pretty simple, as you could see. So what I'm doing is I'm finding the anchor tag which contains the text login and just triggering my mouse over that. uh, so this is the Flipkart. I just have to hover over this and click on the rewards. Okay, that's what we have written in here. Okay, so we are just finding that element, triggering the mouse over, then we are finding another element which is now available in the the element that is being popped up, basically the pop-up, and then we are going to click on that. So if I just change it to only and run this, so it is launching Flipkart. Yeah, so you see, and it hovered over this, I mean this list was visible, you could see. Yeah, and then it identified that rewards element and clicked on that. Okay, all right, great. So this is one real example. Okay, and next is SpiceJet, and here also you could see you're doing pretty much the same. So you're finding the anchor tag which contains the uh, login link, and we're triggering our mouse over that. Then we are identifying an anchor tag which contains this text Spice Club members, and then we are again triggering the mouse over, and then we are finding this particular link, right? Sign up, and we are clicking on that. And this is the element that I have to identify. Yeah, this is the element, right, that I have to identify, and then I have to identify this element. I have to click on this. And let us run this, if it works or not. Okay, yeah, so we are able to launch the sign up page like this. Okay, so you see we have to trigger these events. This is important. And again, how can you figure out? Again, you just inspect that element and click on the events listener tab. Okay, now one last example that we are going to cover in here is of the website automation practice. Okay, so in here, the thing that we have to understand is like this. So I have this element, I just inspect this element. Okay, so this is my element. Okay, and then I have this sub menu, and currently if you could see, the style is display equal to none. So when you just open this, right, now the style has been changed to, if you could see, let us inspect this. So this is my thing, and this is the element or section or the pop-up that would be shown when I move my mouse over this, right? And you could see that display is being changed to block. Okay, And now if I try to identify this element, okay, so this one I want to identify. Okay, so now there's one thing if you are noticing. So when I take my focus over to this element, a class is being added which is sf hover. Okay, I can show you this one. So sf hover was there. I'd have to do that again. So you watch that now. It's on the t-shirt, right? If I just move somewhere else, this class will go. Right, so that's the trick in here, right? There are different ways, you can attempt it. I'll show you the right way. So of course we know that we have to do this much. We have to trigger our mouse over that, and because it was hidden, right? So the first thing that we can do is, what we can simply do is, let me just say, okay, when I'm going to hover over this, it's a normal tendency that the list the pop-up would be shown, and I just have to click on that element. So let me just run this case first and see what it is going to tell me. Suppose it is going to say that the thing is actually hidden. Okay, so it's saying that, yeah, so display is equal to none, right? That's what we saw. So the normal tendency is, okay, let me invoke the show method, but hey, user is not going to do that, like I mentioned. So if I just do this in, okay, now let us see what is going to happen. So I'll get, okay, so it is being covered by some other element, so it is showing to me to use this option. Okay, the point is, the thing is, this subsection or the pop-up is hidden, but it is still there in the DOM, right? So I don't even need to invoke this, right? I can simply, let's say, click on that. It works. In some cases it definitely works. In other cases, you see, the thing has been changed, the URL has been changed, so it has clicked on that particular element which wasn't visible. But how can user do that, right? So this is not the right way. So what is the solution there? The solution is, you need to know how your application is behaving, and that's why I said that when you take your focus over that, right? So when you take your focus over that, it adds a class. So all I'm doing is I'm taking the focus over it, and I'm just buying in some time. So how can you buy in some time rather than doing cy.wait? So what you can do is you can wait for that condition to happen, or wait for the situation to happen or appear. So in here we have to wait for this class to be added when you hover over that. Okay, so we are buying some time because Cypress is really fast. It is going to identify that element, just quickly fire this focus event, and then try to find this element, and it will not find that and will fail. So what this will do is, it will wait for this condition to exist. Okay, so it will wait for this element to have this particular class. So this will give you by default 4 seconds actually, and in 4 seconds, I mean, this class would be applied, and then you simply click on that. You don't even need to pass in the pose is equal to true, because this is no longer hidden anymore. Okay, now you see the top was clicked and everything works as expected. So uh, it's very important we understand when to use this invoke and show, and when to use that pose is going to click. At times what happens is, every element has got some default margin and padding that's out of the box provided by HTML, and even developers are not aware of the fact that that default margin and padding has created a problem, because at times you will see that in the call stack, in the error, you'll see that this element is being overlapped by other element, right? The thing is, because of the default margin and padding, at times the edges are being overlapped, and it's hard for Cypress to figure out, whether the whole thing is being overlapped or not, right? So they always say, okay, it might be there are two windows overlapping each other, and maybe your test case will fail because you may end up clicking on the wrong element, or interacting with the wrong element. So the moment they find any kind of overlap, they say, hey, there's a problem. So if you still want to click on that, use this force is equal to true. In those cases it still makes sense, but first try to understand how the state of your application is changing. It is very important. So go and talk to your developer, understand, do your research, and learn more about this Chrome web developers toolbar. There are quite a lot in there to learn. and that is going to help you in, you know, designing your test cases or designing your automation test cases. Manual test cases, you don't need to, learn all this. But in here, rather than doing in something like this or using force is equal to true in all the cases, please try to understand, how this application behaves when user interacts with it, right? I hope you like this. Thank you so much.